Chapter 11. Michael. They returned to Hartford the next morning. After accepting guardianship of Ella and approving their betrothal, Thomas, Ella's neighbor, had graciously offered their company rooms for the night. He had then insisted on lending Ella a horse for the journey. Michael was thankful on his horse's behalf, but a little regretful on his own. He missed having Ella situated in front of him. "Is it really over, Mike?" Michael looked up at the question. Katie's cloak hung from Ella's shoulders. The hood was thrown back, and a light breeze played with a few blonde strands that had slipped loose from her braid, blowing them across her face as she looked over at him. "Is what over?" She tightened her grip on the reins and stared at her horse's mane. "My stepmother. For 10 years I've been looking for a way out, and a single declaration from you ended it? It seems too good to be true." "Technically it is," he said with a wry grin. Her eyes shot back to his. "To make it official, a number of documents have to be filed, but she can't challenge it once we're married." "Can we file them?" Ella's voice tightened. "To be sure." "We could, but the process won't be finished in time." Michael leaned toward her and smiled mischievously. "It's slow, and I intend to marry you as soon as my parents will allow." Her cheeks turned a pretty shade of red, but she smiled and looked away. "How soon do you think that will be, Mike?" Michael turned to glare at his friend. "It's Michael." Axel waggled his eyebrows at him. "But Ella calls you Mike." "She is the only one who gets to." He'd never liked the shortening of his name, but it sounded different on her lips. "Am I not your best friend?" the Ralnoran prince protested, pressing a hand to his chest. "How can you allow her the privilege of addressing you by such a familiar name, but deny it to... Am I marrying you?" Axel froze with his mouth open as he processed the interruption. No. Then you don't qualify for the privilege." Katie moved her horse closer to her husband's as he flopped his mouth in pretended shock. "If it helps, I'll let you call me Cat." "Your cousin calls you that." Michael saw his friend's brow wrinkle before Axel turned away. "How is that an improvement over Katie?" "It would mean you'd finally reached his level." She smiled sweetly and batted her eyes at him. "Reached his level?" Glancing over at Ella, Michael saw her staring at his friends with her mouth slightly open. Her eyebrows twitched, crawling up her forehead and then collapsing together. "Ignore them," he whispered, leaning closer. "You get used to them, eventually." "Are you sure about this, Michael?" Queen Elaine asked, pressing her lips together. "I know we gave you the option of a commoner, but there is a vast difference between commoner and peasant." Grateful that they were having this conversation while Ella was absent, Michael furrowed his brow and replied, "I love her mother. She is a bit withdrawn, but she is gracious and kind. I have not heard an unkind word from her about those who mistreated her for the last 10 years. It is only through my own observations and the words of her neighbors that I know how bad it was." He shook his head. "Surely, someone with that character is a worthy candidate for princess regardless of her birth or recent status." "I think she's great," Justin piped up. He was sprawled in one of the armchairs in their private family sitting room. "Can you imagine being related to someone like Lady Charlotte?" He shuddered for effect. King Philip sent a quelling look in the direction of his younger son. "Please do not speak of our nobles in such a fashion, Justin. We may not always like them, but their support is necessary for the smooth and peaceful functioning of our kingdom." Turning to Michael, he said, "We told you that you could choose your own bride, and we did give you a narrow window in which to do so. However, such a thing is not to be done lightly. To marry on short acquaintance for advantage to the crown or kingdom is one thing, but to do so solely on the basis of feelings? You have only known her for a few days." "I would feel the same had I known her for years, father," Michael replied confidently. "I love her, and I cannot imagine marrying anyone else." Mother looked hesitant. "Not even Helena?" A pang of grief lanced through his chest at the mention of Axel's sister, but he pushed it away. "For years I have believed that no one could ever catch my heart the way she had. Yet Ella has, and I will not let her go simply because her stepmother has denied her the life she should have had. Whatever knowledge she lacks, she can learn." "I think it's sweet," Anne said quietly. I've always found it sad that royalty and nobility often marry for advantage instead of true love. Justin's eyebrows rose. I do believe that is the most words I've ever heard you string together, Anne, he quipped. Waggling his eyebrows at his parents, he continued, Another vote for Arabella. She makes Michael sweeter and Anne more confident. That is enough, Justin, Father reprimanded as Anne sank back into her seat, cheeks reddening. If you're certain this is what you want, Michael, then you have my blessing. But she comes from a vastly different life. There will be some adjustment required for both of you. It'll be fine, Father, Michael replied with a grin. Father worried too much. As Anne had said, he had found his true love in Ella, and because of that, he knew everything would work out. He found Ella wringing her hands in the sitting room of her guest suite. Concerned, he asked, What's wrong? Nothing, she replied with a weak attempt at a smile. Waving a hand at her surroundings, she added, This is all just so different. You saw what the manor was like, and even Thomas's house. I mean, it's better than home was, but it's nothing like this. She peered toward her bedroom door, beyond which he could hear the sounds of someone moving. And there's a maid organizing my new things? She won't let me help. Of course. Michael gave her a funny look. You're going to be a princess soon. I know, but I've been everyone else's servant for 10 years. I'm not used to letting someone else do things for me. Squeezing her hands, he stepped closer. Is that a bad thing? No. She looked up at him. Mike, are you sure this is all right? I don't know anything about being a princess. And when I started, I didn't know anything about being a prince, he teased. Don't worry, Ella. You'll learn everything you need to. You'll do great. I hope so, she said in a small voice. Right now, I feel like an imposter. Michael watched her for a few moments, wishing that she could see herself as the amazing woman she truly was, instead of the insignificant servant that her stepmother had made her believe she was. You had everyone fooled at that ball, Ella. If I hadn't seen your home, I never would have believed it. There, you see? That's what I mean. Ella frowned. I put on a good act at the ball, but it wasn't real. You discovered the truth. Everyone else will too. He scoffed. What truth? That your stepfamily mistreated you? That's not a crime, Ella. At least not on your part. As I won't hide who you are, there will be nothing to discover. That's not quite what I meant. She made a face. Releasing one of her hands, he ran a finger along her cheek. Don't you love me, Ella? Of course I do, she replied, closing her eyes and leaning into his hand. And don't you trust me? She nodded. Then trust me, Ella. Everyone will love you. It may take some time for them to realize it, but eventually they will. Ella nodded, but from the look on her face, she didn't believe him. It suddenly occurred to him that, for the first time, they were alone together, and there was something he'd been eager to do once they were. Ella, he said quietly. She looked up at him, her face open and inquiring. May I kiss you? Her eyes widened before she smiled shyly and looked away, then gave a small nod. He waited a moment to see if she would say anything. Then he leaned down and gently pressed his lips to hers. She held herself stiffly, but when he drew back, he saw her eyes drift slowly open as she relaxed. They gave each other small smiles, which he took as permission to try again, so he leaned down once more. This time she leaned into him, returning the pressure of his kiss. It was heavenly, and he never wanted to stop. Kissing Ella was like nothing he had ever experienced before. He grinned to himself. He was going to be as bad as Axel. But why should that be a surprise? Axel had found his true love in Katie, and Michael had found his in Ella. So why shouldn't Michael be as crazy about his own bride? Their story had only begun to be written, but despite his father's worries, Michael already knew how it would end, and they lived happily ever after. This was true love, after all. What other ending could there be? The end. Was Michael right? If you haven't already, Pick up a copy of Slippers and Thorns to see if life is as easy for Michael and Ella as he believed it would be. You have been listening to Night of Dance, a retelling of Cinderella, Book 0.5 in the Rumatera Chronicles by Aaron Halbmeyer, performed by Elaine K. Schultz. Print copyright 2024 by Aaron Halbmeyer. Audio copyright 2025 by Aaron Halbmeyer.